Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us from a different time zone, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. And for those who are new in this platform or first time seeing us, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating and contextualizing customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Legato, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is to be able to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a hybrid team, and for those who are afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead more effectively in any situation, do join us in this interview. And today, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our leader, Lena Chu. She has over 15 years of experience as a mental health counselor. She is also a certified expressive therapist and trainer. And before relocating to Singapore, Lena used to run her counseling, consultancy, and training agency in Malaysia. She held a management position in a global organization specializing in employee assistance program, a mother of a school going child outside of her clinical work. Lena spends her time in Chinese brush painting, calligraphy, and meditation group. Wow, that's really exciting. And without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Lena. Hi, Lena.
Hi, Marilyn. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I am very humbled by these invitations.
You're welcome. And obviously, the audience doesn't know how we get to know each other and the reason why
Mm,
I've invited you here actually. So the first time I get to know Lena is through Lunch Club, and then we get connected in LinkedIn. And this is going to be our first collaboration, and hopefully, after this, more collaborations, right? To help and to add value to others. And I enjoyed our conversation in the previous lunch club that we had. So that's
thank
the
you.
reason why I said, like, whatever you have shared with me last time and whatever conversation we had would definitely add value if you put this live, right? So whether for those this is also an invitation for those who are watching us live today, to please do join us in this conversation. This is not just about me or Lena having this interview, but also an invitation to those who are watching us live today to join us. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And for those who will be watching us on a replay, still feel free to put in your highlights, your comments, your questions if you have any. I'll be tagging Lena so she can actually answer us back after this session. So to start with, I'd like you to share with us your leadership experiences. If you have a favorite, leadership style that you would prefer to use, and even like influencers, because that's where people would be able to, relate more to us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks, Marilyn. I think the last time we talked on the Lunch Club platform was very much about
Mhm.
mental health and how generally people dealing with the current challenges. So I think it's very interesting that you invited me to talk about the leadership experience. It does give
Mhm.
me a good time to reflect on it. So I so my experience in leadership is really revolve around managing a diverse team because
Mhm.
of my previous role with the global employee system company. I manage a team across the Asia Pacific region. So
Mhm.
they are from different culture, time zones, and I got really a lot of learning experience from working with those excellent, amazing team members at the time. And I guess one of the takeaway from that is really being someone for them, who able to always encourage them, that
Mm-hmm.
the can do spirit, be sensitive about what they are feeling about themselves when they try to represent a global company in the local market, and then finding the right resources to support them and have them have the can do spirit. So I learn a lot from that and find myself really inspired by leaders who are actually first have vision, and then they're positive, yet firm and clear when dealing with people. So that's really on the work wise. But if you think about it, right, we actually also a leader for our family.
Mm-hmm.
We are actually the first influencer for our children, and we can also be a leader for our community.
Yes,
So
thank you
that,
so much for sharing with us your experience working in a diverse team. And I think it's kind of common when you work for multinational companies or big companies, right? That, there's no way but to work with a diverse team with different cultures, with
mm,
different perspective. And that makes it actually like bigger and better at the same time, not only in the experience that we have but also the rewards that we can get when we help people, as you've mentioned, refine their strengths and enable them to have that can do spirit, right? So
mm,
thank you for sharing that. And what I also like with what you've shared is that the importance of being a leader in your own family as a parent, right? Because I mean,
yeah,
been always like highlighting that as well in some or most of my conversation, because as a parent, as a mom, myself of three children, um, I've learned so much of my leadership skills through through my three children's, and with the diversity of like how they respond, how they react, and even the age differences that they have. Like I have a 2-year old, a 5-year old, and a 16-year old. So imagine how they actually like work, or how you would work and talk to them is so much different as well, right? So
yeah.
I mean,
I like how you put it, right? Diversity, even among your children, they are all your children. Maybe genetically shared some genetic, but does not means they are exactly the same. And then you can use one way to deal with all of them. Yeah, it actually start from family, right?
exactly, right. And then
mm.
to the community, then to your organization. And having said that, I mean, whatever you've shared with me. So, having said that, what is leadership for you?
Yeah, the first thing I think about that is that we actually see and experience leaderships every day, right? So the house we live in, the things that we use, how we access to food, or the transportation system, or the country that we belongs to, they does not happen just like that. It always built with leadership. So that gives me an idea that actually leadership is not so much about a title. It can be formal, it can be informal, like the one that we mentioned, families sounds like an informal kind of a leadership. So to
Right.
me, leadership is a quality. It's actually a quality of someone who have the ability to improve people's life. So this person has something to create, something to give, and to provide, to actually, for the benefits of the others, but of course also for the leaders themselves. Because I really like the point you mentioned, when we actually
Mhm.
help others, we actually become stronger in the process. Yeah.
True.
So
Yeah.
leaders is really, someone you get a followers when people follows you, because they have a sense that you are able to offer some sense of advancement in their life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Mm,
really love how you shared it, because you've made mention about like having or helping others to improve the quality of their lives, seeing themselves creating something bigger, and providing value to others. And again,
mm,
that's all about leadership, right? It's not
mm,
really about the title. Like there are some people, and that what used to be is a leadership to most people, right? It's all the, success, the extrinsic part of, and the titles, that they have to have. But rather, when you are able to like impact or influence others, that's actually leadership, right? And like,
Yes, that's
it's a
right.
good reminder
Mm,
also for everyone that, um one, like, you are a leader in one way or another, right? Whether you're
mm.
in your own
Whether you're
family.
aware or you're not aware of it.
True, true. And it all starts with awareness. So this is us reminding you that everyone is a leader, and you have to act like one as well. Yeah. So, and in my introduction, I've made mention earlier around like next normal, like being able to
Mm,
like stay relevant and all those stuff. So I'm curious to know, from your experience in the last 2.5 years, how would you define and describe the next normal?
that sounds like hip conversations nowadays, right? What is the
True.
next normal and whether normal ever exists?
Exactly.
Probably the next normal is always like in the evolving process. But the way I
Mm-hmm.
look at it is it still it does reveal some basic pattern in it. And one of the trend is that I think we are more aware of moving away from a problem centric viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there are more awareness about today's problem can actually come from yesterday's solutions. So it's the ability to actually adopt a more systems thinking, seeing more
Mm-hmm.
interconnectivity about different part of the thing rather than just pinpoint on something and thought if I can fix that one thing, everything will be all right. And in
Mm-hmm.
reality, it may not be the case. So this is probably one of the lessons that we learned from pandemic, right? We thought the virus is the problem and we thought lockdown was the problem or a certain law and regulations cause a lot of problems or certain employees at workplace are perceived as problematic. But what is important or probably more meaningful here is to look at the big picture and understand that what are the things that in the system is enabling this problem or maintaining the problematic conditions. So then the solution was not so much of the hammering type of approach, but it's more like a thoughtful, progressive type of approach. So and um, it worked well, right, for certain examples that we see.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is quite a significant shift in terms of the mindset or how you look at things. Another mindset is interesting is that understanding that the journey of life is never a linear one. I guess
True.
sometimes we thought when you mention about certain people who are very aspired to be leaders or to be having a progress career, they probably assume that the journey should be linear and felt like very uncomfortable with circular situations like spiraling and moving nowhere. But
Mm-hmm.
somehow it is not linear, and it's okay.
Exactly.
And it's okay. You are still able to make progress in a non-linear way, so that takes a lot more of contemplations in problem solving or decision making, and a lot more of patience to to when dealing with people in general. Mm,
True. And that's a great reminder. I mean, that what makes life exciting, right? Because it's not
mm,
linear, or like there are things that you cannot expect that's happening, like what happened in the during the pandemic, where as if, like, I had this like conversation with some of my college friends and classmates, where like, wow, this is really like very surprising.
mm,
It's like something that you will just see in a movie, and like as if someone actually pushed a button to pause everything. No travel, nobody goes out, and all
Yeah.
those stuff, right? But I, at the same time, like what you've said, right, it has shifted a lot of things as well, and it created a lot of opportunities, I would say, with a lot of us, right? Like this, using this technology, imagine us from different locations now, but we're here together through technology, and for sure we're reaching the world to share our thoughts with them as well. So like that's actually the amazing part of what happened during the pandemic, because the technology has also been accelerated. And again, I really like that you've mentioned that most people are moving away from the problem centric, right? And
Mm.
thinking more of solutions and systems thinking. And again, like that would be really helpful in order to be able to achieve their goals, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's right. And then speaking of which, I think like the topics such as
mhm,
sustainability or
true.
optimizations or including mental health, it's going to
Yes.
be, the key area for the new normal. Mm.
Yes, and that's also one of the reasons why I invited you, because you're specializing on mental health, which is like again another like topic or trend, or like top of the mind for most people in organizations nowadays, because it has been highlighted from the past pandemic, where of course human are very interconnected, and they have like connected as well at the same time, and they need that connection, right? And when
Mm.
we can travel and all those stuff, it's like what else we can do to stay connected with our family, with our friends and all. So it has affected the mental health of most people as well, unfortunately, right? But at least that also is a silver lining for most of us, because that's what where we like, oh, this is important, and we have to always incorporate that as well in our communities, in our organization. And it's not a taboo, right?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
That's
so
right. Mm.
mhm. Yeah. So, and I mean, like, even before the pandemic, for sure, you would agree with me as a corporate leader and also working with corporate leaders, that problems are already there, considering what you've said, right? We're moving away from problem centric in the new
Mm.
normal, or in the next normal. So, what would you say would be the top problems that the leaders would normally face?
Yeah, I could only speak from my lens, right? So it's just the perspective from me, and then of course they can have various perspectives. But I guess the top problem would be really the people, dealing with people, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately leadership leaders need to get things done through people as well, and what actually happening or
Mm-hmm.
what is actually impacting your people, or what your people is actually thinking or feeling or experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, and having that awareness of what is going on with them, and
Mm-hmm.
collectively conscious level, also the unconscious level, right? So I can give you examples like, employees will be definitely taught or during the inductions what's the company mission or what's their vision. They probably already knew about it when they apply for working with you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the conscious element, but the unconscious part would be like, um, hmm, do the company walk the talks, right? Um, how far should I care, and how can I trust? So if this type of the unconscious thinking become collective, means like more than individual, majority of the people's
Mm-hmm.
having that second guess, and they didn't speak out because it's not at the conscious level, but somehow
Mm-hmm.
influence their behaviors. It's very very challenging. It's like the iceberg, right? So what you
Exactly.
see is only at the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot more going on, and it
Mm-hmm.
could be very intimidating for the leaders to not being very aware of what actually they are dealing with and how big it is the issues. So that's works fine, but at the personal level as well, major how worried are these people about something bad may happen to them or to their families, right? And then how conscious they become in terms of their health conditions,
Mm-hmm.
how distracted they are, when they are work trying to juggle between work and then some other things. So it was always like that, but it's even worse now because the boundary between the workplace, the environmental boundary is kind of not clear now. So
Yeah.
it's everything come together, and then they're working from home. They are not just working, but they also have to do parenting. They have to do caregiving, elder caregiving. They have to manage marriage. They have to manage
Mm-hmm.
errands. So that sort of things that is going on in
Mm-hmm.
the people's life, and how relevant informations that the leader have to help them to stay alert about what is the current reality.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Beside driving the bottom line.
true, true. I
Beside
mean,
driving the bottom line. Yeah.
we've always hear like how important it is, and sometimes it's really just having a balance of both. And you're right about that. Like a lot of us only see the top of the iceberg, but actually deeper deeper than what we see is actually like something bigger, right? And
Hmm.
it all starts with awareness after all, and that's kind of true with so much things, like from like like what you've said, consciousness and unconscious collective level in within the
Hmm.
organization. But also I was just listening to a training yesterday around communications, and it also has like different layers to it, right? There's
Hmm.
also the like something that just a fact which most people would hear or see, but also there's also the part where you would probably get to listen to about the emotions, the values of the message or the story that is being shared with you. And
Yeah.
again, that's about really listening to the layers of not only looking into the tip of the iceberg, which is normally in a communication is just the facts, right? But being
Yeah.
able to see all those like other things going on, the values, the emotions, the body language, right? The expressions of the people. That's gonna be a different altogether type of communications, right? So thank you for sharing that with us. And so, of
And
course,
I
we
like
will.
how you describe it, Marilyn, because I think the when you describe about the sessions helping people to kind of voice out, right, able
Mhm,
to express some of the emotional content of their
mhm,
experience,
mhm.
that's really only be able to happen when there is a psychological safety, and
Yeah.
those things is very difficult to build, yeah, in workplace or in every organizations.
True. And I've only heard about it during the pandemic about psychological safety. But I realized, like, since I've been working in the corporate world, like, okay, so that's the reason why this and that. It makes sense, right? Because
Mm,
like psychological safety is kind of everything in terms of communications and collaborations and thriving. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the importance of bottom line as well, right?
mm,
That
mm,
whatever you do in any organization, definitely that will create also impact on your bottom line, right? And that's the reason why we see facts, statistics around how like behaviors or even leadership development, learning and development has a real effect or a direct impact to the profitability of the company, right?
yeah.
And also obviously we won't leave them with just a problem. We wanted to share with that, having said that, I mean, that people would be one of the, dealing with people is the top problem for leaders, right? So what will be the important leadership capabilities or skills that you must have in the next normal in order to continue to lead more effectively?
Yeah. Okay. I think first principle will be it's really tied to the quality of leaders, like
Mm-hmm.
someone who are able to create something value, meaningful, and to improve people's life and all that. So in nature, it's helpful, it's constructive.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess to lead effectively is always having this as a reminder to ensure like everything I do, I say, or I decide is always trying to be helpful and constructive
Mm-hmm.
to the organization, to the team, or to the workplace. Um, and secondly, I like to talk about the awareness of everything you do is an interventions.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we thought being a leader or being a manager, you thought like when you work with your team members, you off, uh, offer solutions or you provide some guidance. That's called interventions. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, everything you do is an interventions because of your members, your followers actually uh, look up to you as a leader. So a small talk along the corridor or how you respond to informal requests, all these things are actually it can be used as an interventions. It can be perceived as an interventions. How it had the power of influence your members formally or informally, whether you're aware or not aware about it. But having the awareness to understand that everything you do or say actually can be an interventions. So hopefully that helps you to be able to always try to be helpful and constructive in your dealing with people and how you uh, work. And the third thing is something I thought is also my learning, I guess, is the comfort. Feel comfortable to access to our ignorance. Like leader does not have to you leader does not mean that you are the person who know all, not even necessary that you know better. So there are things that we can be ignorant about. I learned this a lot when I work with my team members who are from a different culture and locations. I I think they know better, being a local expert in that market.
Mm-hmm.
So that give me always a space to learn to listen to them and try to ask a good questions, right questions to kind of have a better understanding of the solutions before I jump into offering any advice and idea without actually getting a full context of the situations. So this is also yeah, this has helped me a lot, and I thought I also get inspired by leaders who are actually comfortable to take a step back and say, oh, actually I'm not sure about that, but let's see what information or research we need to do further in order to produce a better results. And another thought tips would be to always stay current with what actually happened, like what actually going on at the moment. So I give you an example. So you can have someone like one of the team member come to you and wanted to seek advice about how to deal with a problematic contract or a difficult customers. So while listening to all this content,
Mm-hmm.
what would be also useful to think about having a step back to actually think what is actually going on with this situation. What is the mental attitude of this individual? Is she positive, he positive or negative? How distressed it shows? Is that just the work or there are more that is going on in the personal life? That they were actually able to collect both the information, not just the factual one, like whatever you hear, the news, data, it's already been done some time ago by someone else. Uh, but what you have is the presence movement that also can produce a lot of useful information if we are able to pay attention to that layer as well. So I guess having this conversation to constantly think about how we can improve ourselves in these few areas is something that I'm actually quite interested in and passionate about. Mm.
Wow, thank you for sharing this with us. I really appreciate that you reminded us of all this for and again, as a leader, we're always have to be there to serve, not to be serviced for. And that's the reason why we have to be helpful, and again, constructive. That's also like type of communication, because sometimes we really have to undergo or go through these crucial conversations, but if we are constructive enough, right, at least it's easier for our team members to actually like understand like what do we mean by that, right, and
Mm.
how we can correct it as well, right, because again, everything we do, like what you've mentioned as well, is an intervention, right, and if you are authentic enough, um if you are vulnerable enough to show or to know that there are things that you don't know and that you need help for, right, like what you've said, access your ignorance, and if you have
Mm.
awareness to all of these, right, that will be helpful in, in order to be able to create a culture, and also a collaborative work type of, and that's really important, especially nowadays, where like people are working from hybrid teams, and collaboration will be key in order to make things happen, right, so I really appreciate this summary from you, and that also leads me to my last question. I mean, we've been talking about leadership,
Mm.
learning, transformation, and so much more around this. So, what do you believe will be the role of these three in order to strive for the next normal? That could be like like it's probably an invitation of how will you summarize the conversation altogether.
Yes, I think this is the questions that you are actually the expert. I guess I will. I guess I share my response is more like, uh, uh, the recipients is like something that I wanted to learn from whoever is in this field of doing the training or learning in terms of the transfer, in terms of to create a transformational impact. So
Mhm.
I felt like the challenge of training and learning, it's uh, it's is is the inability to complete the full learning cycles, right? I guess you know what I mean, because most of the time it's still very much of the knowledge transfer. That is just the first step of the entire cycle, right? Having a how to retain those informations is always kind of missing from the picture, because just to make arrangement or determine of what type of knowledge to be transferred, it's already taken up a lot of the priority. But I wish to take this opportunity to kind of remind that um, knowledge transfer does not automatically lead to transformations or
Exactly.
impact. It's just knowledge transfer, and if there's no retentions, it's actually uh, just it just lost over time. So retentions, and after be able to retain the knowledge, people need time to actually apply, test it out, experiment, and
Mhm.
see what's the experience looks like. Um, and they can testify whether this knowledge is really useful to change their life or to improve their conditions, and then only lead to the transformational impact. So I guess this is one of the cycles that we sometimes overlook because of
Mhm.
too busy schedule, or just too many things going on at the same time, completely very distracted, right? So that's one thing. And another two things that I find it very interesting. First is the conversation about the mental health dialogue.
Mhm.
So I know they were also accelerated by a pandemic, that people start
Mhm.
to encourage team members, supervisors, or managers to have a informal conversation, checking in with your members, start with "Are you okay?" kind of hashtag "Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very good initiative. But what is also more important is not just having the intentions to ask the questions, "Are you okay?" but also a training and learning about how you actually facilitate the entire conversations, right?
True.
What happens if your members say, "I am okay," but you can tell it's not okay? So
Okay.
what's the next question to go? Or you have a member who then just say, "I'm not okay," and start breaking down and tearful and all that. Then what should the supervisor and manager do? Where is their authority? Where's their boundary? Right? So are they supposed to do what? So there are a lot of referral techniques that need to be teach, because they are not supposed to try to be a counselor for the members, but they also want to be able to be the carer for the members at that time. Or if you have a conversation to say, "Are you okay?" and then the team members share with some things that in your assessment it more like a performance issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's a very tricky part to handle. And how do you manage that piece of fact of a performance issues while you wanted to assume a role to be the carer for the thing? So these are very difficult conversations to have. And I think, the company may wanted to look at a more thorough training about the entire facilitations of that conversations. And another framework that I learned, I thought might be very interested to deepen, especially in the context of global team hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
People work from different places at different time and all that, which is what we call a bar framework. So it's B for boundary, A for authority, R for role, and then T is the abbreviations for task. So I was benefit by this framework a bit, given the facts that sometimes when you work with a team member who's remote from a different time zone, and then boundary is something that probably we miss discuss about. So for example, like if you would like to invite a member to join a meeting, but it's a very unfriendly hour for that individual. So how do we deal with that sort of boundary? Or
Mm-hmm.
now it's even became more prevalent when all these things mix up when people work from home. Just now we're talking about caregiving, parenting, and all that thing. So if someone is working from home and then they have a lot of other family issues to deal with, so what is the boundary of the employees while managing the responsible uh, with the employer? So this is one thing. And also the managers, right? So if someone tell you, "I couldn't do this because of what's going on with my kids, and then I don't have help," and all that thing. So for you, you have the boundary and the authority to give advice of in terms of, maybe make some adjustment of the work processes, or maybe align some other team member to support the member. But you probably do not have the boundary to impose your preferences or your value about how your employees or your team members should be managing their family affairs, so to speak. So I felt like there's a lot of confusions and gray area in that
Right.
space,
Mm-hmm.
and it was causing a lot. Without knowing the boundary and the authority to
Mm-hmm.
go first, it's very difficult to determine what's my role and then break down to my tasks for executions. So
Right.
decision making is also another one. So if you need something for your local team, but um, but the key decision maker is not accessible for whatever reasons, how
Mm-hmm.
much authority you have to make the decision or not to make the decision at that point of time. So communications like that can be done in a very proactive way, and then to sort out, the confusion of the boundary and the authority, then probably the role and the task will fall into place much more smoothly and easily.
Wow.
I
I,
hope
I'm
I hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm really glad you brought it up. And while you're actually sharing that, some conversations came up to my mind. I had similar conversations that are quite related to what you just shared. Like, I remembered one of the potential clients that I get to speak with is that, like, um, the same question on how do we actually handle when someone is suffering from mental health within the organization and you don't know what to do, and even if you train the supervisors, managers, and above, but what if the person beside that person who's suffering is actually rank and file? And the rank and file doesn't also know what to do, right, in the situation. And that's also the reason why it's very important to, like, at least have a brief awareness or training around that space where, like, whoever you are within the organization, to understand,
Mm.
like, what's going on and what you can do to help as well, right, in that context. And also, like, speaking of boundaries, which has been taken away quite a lot during the pandemic while we're working from home. So that's actually one of the problems why one of my clients actually also um, shared how other other people within their organization is quite afraid of, like, moving up or stepping up or taking a
Mm.
leadership role because like there are some leaders who are, like, messaging or sending emails at 12 midnight. And so, like, oh my god, I don't want to do that,
Mm.
right, myself. When I'm a leader, am I expected to work at that time? So again, like what you mentioned, is really like also knowing your boundaries as a leader as well, right? And it's all about building the culture within the organization, similar to what we have also, like, discussed in the earlier
And
questions.
also the psychological safety for this individual to actually be
Mhm.
able to ask the important questions to
Correct.
clarify. Maybe
Mhm.
that's not assumptions at all, and
Mhm.
uh, but it would be quite sad or to see that because of that assumptions or misassumptions,
Mhm.
she passed a leadership opportunities, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, this is again about communication, about your training and learning, and also
Mhm.
tipping into the unconscious side of things, the
Yes.
what is under the iceberg, and be
Mhm.
comfortable of things that we do not know, and try to be always helpful and constructive. Mm.
Yes, yes. And so I really appreciate all this conversation that we have. Important reminders for every one of us, for the leaders who are listening here, the importance of communications, of psychological safety, and being able to handle mental health. And that actually leads us to my last two questions, which I would normally refer to as my Miss Universe questions, because these are really open questions and an invitation
Mm.
for you to actually, like, share like
I
what you
thought the
know.
previous one was the last question you mentioned. All
Not
right,
yet.
carry on.
I have two more questions for you, but these are very open questions, which is
Mm.
quite like a shift from, what we have
Mm.
discussed, but it could be related as well, right?
Okay.
So if you were to have a magic wand that you can use,
Mm.
what will you do with it?
Mm. Mm. I guess one of the misunderstanding, uh, I mean, this is again a lens from a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
One of the misunderstanding is that we are taught that we need to compete to get what we want.
Mm-hmm.
The competitive mindset. So the magic one, boom, re- renounce that, and um, and people can feel secure that you'll find the right place that's meant for you, right? And then uh, the phrases about no one is irreplaceable is again is more like conditioning things. It's more like something in the unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
But just imagine if you carry that mindset with you, how is that influencing your day to day behavior, relating when you work and all that. Um, so it really make you lost the spark. So I hope people feel secure that they can find the right place. They have the compass in them, and
Mm-hmm.
then and follow your heart. Follow your
Exactly.
heart. You'll get where you're meant to be, and that's the only place that you can feel in. So that's really like a magic one, like miracles.
I really hope you have a magic wand, but I'm sure even if you don't, from your own like talents and from your own capability, you are already doing this with the work that you
Mm,
do, right?
mm,
And again, it's also a reminder for everyone that we are all amazing. We have our own talents and superpowers that we can make use of, and it's really about being comfortable with yourself and following your heart at the end of the day, right?
mm,
Because
mm.
it's interesting. I actually, when I get to find out about this from Gene Keys, that when you just express yourself and just leave as you are, um, it's amazing, like how you are not only benefiting yourself but also others. It's
Yeah,
actually a gift to the world if you actually like believe that whoever you are, whatever you have, and whatever your
mm,
talents are, is actually what's also your calling, right? and
yeah.
and
That's the
again.
self actualizations in psychology. Mm.
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm not very like familiar with all the frameworks and technical um
You don't have to
terminology.
familiar with that to be self-actualizing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
what you just described is already showing that you are kind of on the journey of self-actualizing as well, Marilyn.
oh wow, thank you for that.
Mm,
And
mm,
again, like what we've been talking about earlier, like the key is really collaboration. So it's not really
yeah.
so much of competition, it's really more of collaboration. Like
Mm,
I see a lot of companies, even training providers like me, as like, oh, we can collaborate. That's how I actually like, oh, is that my competitor? I think we can collaborate. So that's
yes,
how I actually always see it. And like what the group
yes,
COO of AirAsia mentioned, collaboration is queen. If cash is king, if cash is king, collaboration is queen. And
yes.
that has
Because you
been
are driven by the passions, you're driven by your goal.
Mhm,
And when you compete, you actually feel threatened.
mhm.
That's exactly the opposite of the psychology safety.
Exactly right.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's what companies needed to have as well, the psychological
mm.
safety, so that they can collaborate, or they will have like a better relationship within. Like it's amazing when you go to work, because more than half of your waking life is spent at work. Might as well have
Yeah,
joyful
and
work,
have fulfillment.
joyful workplace, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And so that leads me to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best
mm.
answer, what would it be? What question would you ask yourself? And since you can best answer that, what would it be?
I guess I'll I'll come back to my experts, right? So
Mhm,
I know we've been spending a lot of time talking about leadership transformations,
mhm,
which is very good, very relevant.
mhm,
Um, but what I can best answer, my expertise is really about counselings, about emotional consultations, about
mhm,
emotional healings, and all that thing. So I learn a lot from working with my clients,
mhm,
um, and I know there are a group of people need this type of help. Um, Not that they're failing in their life, quite the opposite. They are, sometimes they are quite successful
mhm,
publicly, but somehow they feel lack of fulfillment. They feel a lot of pain at the psyche level in their inner life. They don't really know what's there, what exactly is that, but they have a feelings or a sense that something can be better.
Mm-hmm.
So these people can be benefit from emotional consultations, um, coming from the space that they how do they help themselves to feel safe and secure
Mm-hmm.
in their own skins. Yeah, that's where they find the compass. That's where they find the compass and find the right place that meant for them.
Yes. So,
Mm.
did I get it right that the question is what's going on in their inner life? Is
Their
that the
inner life. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's great. Yeah, and again, like a lot of us really look into very external, same as the iceberg, right? Tip of the iceberg.
Mm.
Same conversation that we had earlier. Like, a lot of people are looking at that iceberg, tip of the iceberg, when they have to work on the inner works, right? The inner part of
Mm.
their life. And again, it's all about balance, being able to satisfy your mind, body, and soul, because we're interconnected, as you've mentioned as well. So
Yeah.
having reminder that we despite that we might have success in one space or aspect of life, what we have to do is to really work on our inner self, or as you mentioned, inner life, right? And also being able to like balance different types in order to, or
Mm.
aspects of our lives, in order to really have that fulfillment and happiness that we're looking forward and we all deserve, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. All in all the experience you have is all about self understandings.
Yes. And it's
Mm.
interesting to be reminded about that, by the way, this morning when I was doing my meditation, that it's really about acceptance of what is, and even like the difficulties that you're having in your life right now. And like, it happens because it will strengthen you in the end as well, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Is there any additional message that you'd like to share with our audience before we end our conversation today?
Um, well, I guess in a nutshell, it's really follow your heart, right? And yeah, and don't worry about not knowing all, not knowing better. That's we all learn in our life.
Wow, thank you so much for
Mm.
for this conversation. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. And I really appreciate this very authentic conversation, very heartfelt, I would say. And and of course, for our audience who's watching us live or on a replay, thank you so much for joining us, and hope you got something out of this conversation. And let's work together, let's all collaborate, and let's all create the opportunity that we wanted to see in this world. Let's all create a better world to live in, right? And remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So, with that, we would like to thank everyone, especially you, Lena, for this, for your time and for your knowledge and insights to this conversation. And to remind every one of us that if your action create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again,
Thanks
Lena.
for the nice summary. Thank you. Bye.
You have a good day. Bye bye.